Hey guys, in this video I will show you how I made this simple test tube vase. I got the inspiration from Pinterest, where you can find all sorts of designs, but at the end of the day they're all pretty much based on the same concept. You have a test tube, obviously, and it's supported by some kind of a base. It's a very simple do-it-yourself project that I think is good for beginners and can make a nice handmade gift. Also, since this is a relatively simple project, you should be able to make one of these in a single weekend. Before we start, here's a quick overview of my design. The entire base is made of 8 pieces of wood stacked on top of each other. Each measures 5.5 by 5.5 centimeters and is 2 centimeters thick. The test tube that I have here is 2.5 centimeters wide and about 18 centimeters tall. The 3 bottom pieces have been made heavier to make the base much more stable. You will see how I did that in a minute. I drilled through the remaining 5 pieces with a spade bit as wide as the test tube. The grain direction for each layer of wood is perpendicular to the one before it. I did this to make the base look fancier. Okay, now let's make this thing. For the base I used a scrap piece of 2 cm thick basswood. This is a leftover from my touch-activated lantern project. If you haven't seen that video of mine, do check it out. I fired up my mini table saw and cut the 8 pieces of wood. If you don't have a table saw, you can simply use a hand saw. You should be able to get similar results, it's just going to take longer. A vase like this needs a heavy bottom to be stable. That's why I hollowed out the 3 bottom pieces and filled them up with metal nuts, which are cheap and heavy. Notice that only one of the pieces is hollowed out completely. This piece will go in between the other 2. After stuffing in as much metal as I could, I filled the gaps with sawdust to prevent any movement. After that, I glued the 3rd piece on top. While the glue was drying, I drilled through the remaining 5 pieces with a 25mm spade bit to create the opening for the tube. To get a nice, clean hole with minimum chip out, I suggest you drill only halfway. As soon as the tip of the spade bit shows up on the other side, flip the piece and complete the hole. Next, I stacked and glued the 5 pieces together. I chose to let the glue dry with the tube inside to make sure that the pieces are perfectly aligned. But it turned out this wasn't the smartest thing to do, because the tube stuck inside. Fortunately, I was able to gently pull it out, and the glue that was stuck to it came off easily after I soaked it in water. A few hours later, I glued the 3 bottom pieces to the other 5. Again, notice how the wood grain direction changes 90 degrees for each layer. The next step was to give the base a good sanding. I started with rough 80 grit sandpaper and went through 120, 240 and finally 350 grit for a super smooth finish. At this point, I only had a rough idea of what I wanted the wooden base to look like. I made a cut at an angle to remove some of the material, but it didn't look quite great. However, I realized that making the entire side curved like the sails of a ship would be a nice look. A couple of hours later, I got the look that I was aiming for, and it took a lot of sanding, but it was worth it. Finally, I gave it a few coats of spray lacquer, and after drying, it was ready to be used. Overall, I am pretty happy with how this test tube vase turned out. The extra weight made it very solid, so it can support both small and some bigger flowers. I ended up giving this one away as a Christmas gift, but I think I might try making at least one more in the future. Maybe a bigger one made of different kinds of wood. So what do you think about my first test tube vase? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel to never miss any of my future projects. Thanks for watching!